Hey guys, this is Geoth.
And I'm Mr. Onion.
Today we're going to be talking about the things you should and should not be thinking about as a low B level player. Do you have a question for me, Mr. Onion?
I have a lot of questions for you today, Geoth. Alright, first and foremost is a question that is on my mind and maybe on a lot of other people's minds. Foregating. Foregating is like a really popular low-level strategy, or people recommend to do it up to like Platinum for learning.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they recommend it, and why aren't we doing it?
They recommend it because it's basically the easiest to do low level viable strategy that you can use all the way up. But for learning purposes, I don't feel like it's very good because the build is short. You're not going to have very long games at all, and you're going to be way more focused on microing your units around than you are actually building a lot of stuff off one base like we are, and spending our resources the correct way.
I gotcha. Alright, so then I just got some general questions here about things that are popular, I guess. Hotkeys. Why are hotkeys important, and why should I learn them?
They're important because hotkeys are the basic building blocks of like a mechanically good player. If you don't know all your hotkeys, you're going to be clicking for everything, and that's going to be slow, and you're not going to be able to focus on the things that are actually going on inside the game.
I gotcha. So speed is key.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, control groups. Why are they important, and what are they for people who don't know?
Control groups are made by pressing Control and then a number. They show up above your bottom selection panel, the middle of your screen, the bottom middle screen, and players use them for three different things. They use them for their production buildings, their nexus to make workers, and their army. Those are the main use of control groups. And it's going to let you reselect things that you're going to be selecting anyway, just so that you can always keep an eye on them, even if you're not inside your base. Like checking to see you're constantly making out of your gateways, making sure they're on cooldown, making sure you're always making a couple probes.
Good stuff. Alright, so let's talk about APM. APM's a really popular thing among new players, and it's like a highly sought-after thing at high level. Why are we not worrying about APM?
APM doesn't matter because it's just a measure of how many things you're doing inside the game, and those things could just be spam. I feel like it's something fun to look at, but it's not a measure of a good player. There are people in Masters League who have like 110 APM.
Right, and for people who don't know, that's low.
Yeah, your APM is how much?
My APM's about 70.
Okay, so that's not far off from where that is.
Right. Okay, next concept. This is kind of a bigger one. This is production. What is production, and why is it important?
Production is making sure is the ability to make sure you're always producing something out of your buildings, keeping the buildings you have active, and it's also keeping your money low.
Why is it good to keep your money low?
It's important to keep your money low because if you're not keeping your money low, you might as well not even be mining that money, really. I feel like there's a really large emphasis on producing a lot of workers, and I think that's important for a new player to grasp. But that concept is kind of lost if you aren't spending those minerals.
Alright, so spend those money, guys. Alright, next thing we're going to do is cheese. I find myself worrying about cheese a lot when I'm playing. Is that a good thing to worry about, a bad thing to worry about?
Which cheese are you worried about specifically, do you think?
Anything early, mostly. So things like cannon rushes, like bunker rushes, things of that nature.
The reason we're not worrying about anything early is because we're using a one-base build. If we were doing something crazy economical, like really fast expanding or something, we would have to scout to make sure they're not going to be doing a really fast all-in. Because if they do make a ton of units, a ton of army, they're just going to come at us with a big ball, and we're not going to be ready for any of that. We're just going to die really quickly because we made a ton of workers on two base when they're still on one base. But since we're on one base, we're basically starting from the lowest point. So we're going to be safe against a lot of the early game fast stuff. We can just push and win.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Next thing we got here, unit counters. I find myself worrying about this a lot as well. Why don't I have to worry about unit counters, at least within the context of this build?
I feel like you should worry about composition, but you shouldn't have to worry about unit counters. What I mean by that is that if you scout me going one unit really heavy, you could choose to make the counter to that unit, but that would probably end up changing your economy in some way, where you float a lot of gas or a lot of minerals, and your build itself is going to change, and you won't understand how to deviate away to actually create counters for those units. So it's something you should just not worry about. You should just be more focused on not getting yourself supply blocked. Because if you have a large food advantage, you're going to end up winning anyway. Because even if you're going against a guy who has... Even if you have Colossus, for some reason, you're going against a guy who has a ton of links. He has a ton of links. He's going to win anyway. At this level. For the low-level people. That's how it's going to work.
Alright.
Counters are going to be much more important later on, but I'm not going to focus on them at all.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Okay, next we got scouting. In this build, we don't scout. Why is that, and why is it okay?
It's okay because we, well, this kind of goes back to the early game stuff. We're really safe against anything early, so we're not going to be scouting for anything. It also goes into the deviation. We're not going to be changing our build in any way. We're just going to be learning how to do one thing, doing it the best we can. I think that's a healthy lesson to learn as a new player.
Okay. Alright, micro. Why is micro unimportant?
Micro is unimportant because if you have really good micro and you happen to get a couple extra shots off with your stalkers because you're kiting really well, it's not going to matter if your opponent has just more units than you do. You happen to make your trade a little bit more efficient, but you're going to lose the game anyway. And if you're microing, you're also going to have less units overall because you're going to be more focused on your army and less focused on your actual production.
Okay.
Buildings are the counter to any Protoss army.
I see that. Alright, last concept we got, just to end this video out, now that you've defeated my push with spine crawlers, is air units. Why don't I have to worry about air units?
You don't have to worry about air units because... it's because you're going to be sitting on one base, and you're going to be making stalkers anyway, so you're going to be safe against any air. And a lot of people, they build cannons and turrets in their mineral line thinking that their opponent's going to end up with a ton of air units or drop in their base when they're never going to come at you with it.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because, like I mentioned before, is that they're going to be so focused microing that drop in the back of your base, they're going to end up with less stuff. And like we saw in that replay with the Reapers in the previous video, you ended up with more workers even though he fast expanded. That's just because your production was better than his.
Right. Alright, I think that wraps up all of our concepts. So, good luck, have fun, guys. Thanks for watching.